for number 2. I'm going to try to do some of the philosophical stuff. If any of you do philosophy better than me, you might be able to explain this better, because I'm definitely a science person. So the first one is the fact that you cannot have an actual infinite. And an actual infinite would be something like an infinite number of events going into the past, which would give you an infinite universe. You can have potential infinites, which would be like if you take the distance of this table from here to there and continually split it in half. Theoretically, you could do that infinitely, but that's just a potential for an infinite. You don't have right here an infinite number of divisions. It's kind of like an asymptote on a graph. You get closer and closer to 0 or to infinity, but you would never actually reach it. It's not actually there. So you can't have an actual infinite. Numbers are theoretically infinite, but numbers are not material. Another problem
that's, I mean, it's not philosophical, it's actually mathematical. There are states of infinity. It's not, for example, adding up all the real numbers versus adding up all reals, adding up all imaginaries, adding up all irrational versus rational, 3 different states of infinity that are not necessarily a number of infinity.
I'm not that much familiar with that, so.
Math major, so.
Okay, yeah. I don't have to take any more math classes. Probably just using math. Hey, I tested out at some of them.
Well, another thing that the basic level of mathematics is lost here in this thing.
They're distinct or indistinct? Okay. So another one is that even if you were to have an actual infinite, you could not achieve this infinite by adding more things. Like, this would apply to events. You can't reach an infinity of events, of infinity of anything by just adding one more, because you'd never reach it. It's kind of going back to the potential versus actual infinite. And it works the same way going backwards. You can't have an infinite regress of events, because as you kept on going backwards, tracing the events, either you would never reach it. Sorry, I told you I can, with the mathematical, philosophical stuff, not my forte explaining. I can refer you to this guy's lectures if you want better explanations here. But another problem would be, if you have an infinite regressive event, then why didn't today happen 70 gazillion years ago? Because you've had an infinite amount of time to get here. So if you have an infinite regressive event, we would expect that everything that's happening now would already have happened an infinity ago. There's no reason to expect that it would be happening now. That's probably not all that
Well,
clear.
it would be happening now, but it may have happened then. It's not unique. All you're saying is whether it's unique or not.
Can you?
Elaborate?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get a grasp of what you're trying to say, because it seems like essentially when you're talking about infinite regressive number of events, if they could happen 55 million, or I don't know, 20 trillion years ago, depending on whatever, which I suppose perceivably it could, but that's no reason to say it did. That would be semantic. Or not, it could be a non sequitur. It could have happened, but that's just speaking to uniqueness, but go on. Is that an idea, what you were trying to get at?
So are what you're saying is it doesn't matter when it's happening,
It would still occur.
Okay.
It's the probability of, the insane probability of it occurring twice, but it's dynamic system. So I suppose given time infinite, it could happen twice. I'm merely saying it could, that does not necessarily mean it did.
Okay.
I agree.
Let's see. Sorry, I'm not as prepared as I would like to be. I've had a crazy week, so keep on referring back to this.
You have a question?
Yeah. So if you're talking about, like, you can't actually actualize an infinity. So if you're going backwards, you can actually, does the same apply to the future in that case? You can actually actualize an infinite future, so the future is not infinite. Would that argument still stand?
I guess if you added events, you would never reach infinity, but since they haven't happened yet, it would still technically be a potential infinite.
Okay.
but which we would never reach, but potentially it's still there. Kind of like you couldn't keep on dividing this distance in half, but you'd never reach an infinite number of divisions, even though potentially it's there.
The difference between perceivable infinity and actual infinity, when it comes right down to it. We can perceive a number insurmountably large, but infinity as a state is no larger than that. So we
So we can't.
could theoretically reach in extraordinarily large so that human perception says it's infinity, but not
But it wouldn't.
necessarily. No, it's not
Actually
mathematical
be
infinity. Mathematical infinity is a state, it's not a number.
Yeah.
I guess I'm confused as to why that could apply to the future but not to the past.
Because the past events have already happened, they're actual things, but things in the future haven't happened yet, they're potential.
With, where are they?
But you're talking about space-time, one direction is just as valid
Yeah.
as the next. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, like I said, this is not my strongest area at all. I can,
Assuming certain speed, you can travel back and forth. You could theoretically I'm saying, because physics still cries about this, travel back and forth through the time stream and perceivably have events that could apply to the past. So it would be, the problem is that it's viewing it as the time stream having one direction. Really, it's as a subspace or a manifold of itself. It has multi-dimensions. You could travel on theoretically.
okay, so theoretically you could trace time back, that's all you're saying?
yeah.
Yeah. So again, the
It
physics.
wouldn't go infinitely.
The physics of traveling back in time make me cry, but
Yeah. But everybody loves time travel anyway, so I mean, we can look backwards, but since they are events, we can't get that to that. There actually is an infinite time backwards.
Another issue you run into is because the past events have already occurred, certain possibilities that could have already been actualized, whereas in the future, the possibilities have not yet been actualized. So if you went to the future once, then you came back and you did it again, it may be a different future entirely. Because the possibilities may be actualized even in circumstances.
Yeah, and I agree with the actualized past, but I guess what I'm saying is that how do we know that there's an actual point at which the past began?
yeah, I mean, we could speculate on that certain point as well and good, but you run into a non sequitur when you say that it did actually occur, that things started and were formed there. All it's really saying is, well, there could have been nothing there, therefore nothing was there, and then something happened, therefore there had to, the entire gist of the argument, there had to be something, i.e. causation.
What would there have been before?
I don't know. I have no idea, because I have no idea if there would be in the beginning.
What would be before time because
It
we've
would have
only
to be
experienced
something that's
time.
not time.
I mean, that's,
I mean, right now all we're arguing is that the universe started.
I can manifold 100 dimensions on itself and mathematically try and find something that was there beyond the time dimension and apply it to physics. We couldn't conceive it in a trillion years, even from now, but it still wouldn't say it could or couldn't exist. You can't take it certain.
I mean, I believe that something existed before time, but it couldn't be time.
But then how could
That
it?
doesn't necessarily mean that it can cause the time to exist, though. My argument is that it does cause the time to exist. Okay. We're just talking about a cause right now. Yeah.
The argument can be altered slightly. I was thinking about the other versions of that. Kind of came this up by, they had the initial premise of one, being whatever begins to exist in time as a cause.
so for
But
sake of argument, we
beginning
just,
implies time, but
Got it.
I guess that's clarified.
But by placing that there, kind of clear some of the possible subjects.
Okay.
so for sake of argument, we're just going to assume that the universe began at the most definite point.
Yeah.
Which is non sequitur, but okay.
It doesn't make sense to say that the universe began to exist at a point.
We can speculate that. We can speculate that through the Big Bang that it began at a single point. We can't say that that's when matter formed. What if it was dark matter that was there and through some physical process that we have no idea what happened? Pro tip, we have no idea the interaction
But
of
that
dark
would
matter.
imply time.
Would it?
Not necessarily. Why would that imply time?
Because something existed beforehand, so there would be time between when that existed and when it exploded and turned into matter.
So that could be some sort of non-time cause.
Would it really have to be a non-time cause?
If time started there, then yeah.
as we perceive time starts
Yeah, that's
there.
what I'm saying. I think, see, what I'm saying is in the system we're in, we can't perceive anything other than what we know.
The universe is a closed system.
So do you get what I'm saying, is that there could have been something that we are not aware of that existed prior to that?
Yeah.
There
but
could have been. That
Yeah,
doesn't mean that there
yeah,
was.
I'm not saying there definitely
It's
wasn't.
reasonable to believe that time started there, and so.
Yeah,
something
there's like
started-
From our limited perspective, it's reasonable to say that space-time started at point T, but that's just merely to allow us to perform the physics. That does not necessarily imply, because it's a non